Hey, hey, welcome in. Let the good vibes all begin. Something good is about to happen. Sure. I've been waiting on you. Got a seat with your name. Started with a coffee chat. Now we about to change the game. You got a story worth telling, and I got a room full of ears. So drop whatever you've been holding. Get ready because your time is here. Because when real people talk to real people, something shifts. When real stories meet real listeners, something lifts. Every Saturday we show up and we bring our best. Show up to Carrie Connects and leave it best. Show up, show up. Something is happening here. Carrie Connects, Carrie Connects. This is your moment. Come near where every story intersects and every heart connects. From a coffee chat to the main stage, just bring who you are. Carrie Connects. Carrie Connects. Connection is the start. Carrie Connects. Entrepreneurs, voices, friends, where inspiration never ends. You did not come this far just to sit in the back. Everything you walk through was getting you ready for that. So step into the light. Let somebody see your face. Because the right conversation can change everything in this place. When real people talk to real people, something shifts. And real stories meet real listeners, something lifts. Every Saturday we show up and we bring our best. Show up to Carrie Connects and leave it bright. Show up, show up. Something is happening here. Carrie Connects, Carrie Connects. This is your moment. Come near where every story intersects and every heart connects. So the coffee chat to the main stage, just bring who you are. Carrie Connects, Carrie Connects. Connection is the start. We started over coffee just to see if it was real. Yeah, you opened up and showed me everything you feel. Now the world is watching and they say the very best chance. Carrie Connects is where somebody finally cares. Show up, something is happening here. Carrie Connects, Carrie Connects. Listen, you know it. Come near. Every story intersects and every heart connects. From the coffee chat to the main stage, just be who you are. Carrie Connects. Real conversations, real connections. This is Carrie Connects. Show up.
I absolutely love it. Show up. And this is Carrie Connects, and I am here with my special guest for this Saturday, Mr. Jason Wilson. So welcome, welcome, welcome to Carrie Connects. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Carrie. Thank you so much for the invitation.
All right, I'm super excited that you are here. We're going to jump right into it. We are in Men's Mental Health Month, and I just wanted to make sure that we had a man in the room who's actually living what a lot of people are only talking about. And so you're based in Bogota, Colombia, and you've been there over 24 years. You run a podcast production business, a Christian mental wellness community, and a faith-driven dating platform. So get into that. So for everybody who's in the room who has not had a coffee chat with you yet, tell us in your own words, who is Jason Wilson?
So I'm originally from Atlanta, Georgia, and so I grew up there. And right before I left the States, I moved out to Texas. And so right after I graduated from Morehouse, I began my professional career in fitness. And so I was a personal trainer started my own business as a personal trainer. And then when I went out to Texas, I worked for several health club chains, 24-hour fitness, and Gold's Gym. And so the last job that I had in Texas, I was actually the corporate sales rep at Gold's Gym. And, that was some journey. I've always been an Atlanta fan when it comes to sports. So I love the Hawks, the Braves, the Falcons. I didn't want to go to Texas. I mean, I'm not a Dallas fan, right? And so, life just put me in that direction. I ended up in Texas, and I actually loved it while I was out there. And so while I was out there, though, the majority of my friends were Latin. And so, I had friends from Colombia, from Cuba, Puerto Rico, and Mexico. And my thing was salsa dancing. My mother actually taught me how to salsa dance when I was a kid. And so she was from Brooklyn, and she used to go salsa dancing like on the weekends. And I'll never forget, I was like 6 or 7 years old, and she put on some Tito Puente. And so she started salsa dancing, and she, grabbed my hand, and I said, "Mom, I don't know how to do this." And so she taught me how to dance. And, when you're a kid and you learn something, you forget it when you grow up. So when I got out to Texas, I said, okay, I want to pick up salsa dancing. And of course, I need to learn again from scratch. And so, just to learn the basic step, I mean, that's the hardest thing. It took me a month and a half to learn that. But once you get the basic step, it's easy after that. But that was me going salsa dancing every Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, every single week until I learned.
That is so amazing.
Yeah, I mean, it took some dedication, but it was fun.
Yes.
And of course, I had gone to clubs and stuff like that in Atlanta. The whole vibe between, let's say, a black club, right, in Atlanta, and then going to a Latin club is completely different. I went with a friend of mine to a salsa club. And when we walked in, I mean, it was like he was a star. He walked up to the women, kissed them on the cheek, and he introduced me, and they kissed me on the cheek.
Oh, you were sold in, huh?
I mean, I was like, you can do that? And so, that doesn't happen in a black club, right? So, that those cultural differences, of course, draw you right in. People are really, really nice. Even if you become friends, they invite you into their home, come eat with us. I mean, that doesn't happen at other clubs. And so I just fell in love with the culture. And I met this girl. She was actually from Colombia. We dated for a while. And I said, okay, I want my wife to be Colombian.
Wow.
And then so after that, I was at Gold's Gym, and I was working in corporate sales, and I wanted to leave. I wanted to do something else. I felt like, my life had much more purpose than what I was doing. I mean, it was a fun job, don't get me wrong, but I felt like there was something more to life than what I was doing. And so my mother had bipolar depression. And she was having some personal issues with her diabetes as well. And so me being in fitness, I said, okay, I'm going to go back to Atlanta, help her with her workout program. I didn't quite know what to do about, her mental health at that time. We're talking about the year 2002. So, of course, if you exercise, that can improve your mental health, right? So I ended up moving to Atlanta, and 4 months, actually, I moved to Atlanta. And before I left, though, I was at my cousin's house, and I was getting ready to leave the next morning. You ever had a lucid dream?
I have, often.
Okay. Yeah. So this was actually the first lucid dream that I could ever remember even having.
So before you tell us about your lucid dream, I just want to track. So you left Atlanta in '99 for Texas. You discovered salsa dancing. You fell in love with Latin culture, and now you're having these lucid dreams?
So this actually happened the night before I left Texas.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, I don't remember having a lucid dream before this night. And so what happens is I'm laying on this antique table in the dream, and all of a sudden this demon appears. And I know you've seen demons in movies and TV shows and stuff like that. So have I. But this thing, I mean, it was the most horrific sight I've ever had. I mean, to even try to describe the way that this thing looked, I mean, it was horrific, right? That's the only thing I can come up with. And it was sitting on my chest and it was choking me. And so I couldn't move. I couldn't scream. I couldn't do anything. It was like I was frozen in that spot. It seemed like for 2 hours. And I just, I woke up out of the dream. And then my cousin said, "Hey, Jason, what were you dreaming about?" I said, "Man, why didn't you try to wake me up or something?"
It'd be
And he
people.
said, right. But anyway, he said, "Jason, man, I was shaking you. I was throwing pillows at you and you didn't move." Yeah. And at that time, I didn't have the courage to tell him what that dream was about. So I just kind of like brushed it off as a crazy nightmare, and I didn't think anything else about it. The next day, I'm washing my car, getting ready to drive from Atlanta to Dallas. This is like a 13-hour drive, right? And so I noticed that my throat was getting scratchy, like I was coming down with something. I didn't pay any attention to it, though. And I started driving. After a couple of hours, I noticed like some irritation. So I go to a convenience store at a gas station and get a Coke, and felt fine after that. Another couple of hours go by and I notice more irritation, and it's getting sore every time I swallow now. So I went to a McDonald's and got a vanilla milkshake and drank that. I felt okay after that. And so by the time I get to Atlanta, though, I mean, it was excruciating. Every time that I swallowed, I didn't want to swallow.
Right.
And so I got to my mother's house and I went to the bathroom and I'm looking on the inside of my throat in the mirror. It's all red and irritated and stuff. And I was like, gosh, what's going on? And so the next day it hurt so bad, I went to the emergency room. And they treated me for the pain and everything. And I had a job lined up at LA Fitness in sales. And so the doctor was like, "Jason, don't go to work. Take it easy until you feel better." I said, "Okay." And so I got home to my mother's house. I called my boss at LA Fitness. He said, "Jason, don't worry about it. Just give me a call when you're better and you can come on in." I said, "Okay, cool." Well, a week went by. I was sick. And so by the time I got to my job, I'm sitting at my desk and I had a Bible on my desk. And the personal training director is walking by. He said, "Oh, I see you have a Bible on your desk. Do you ever have a chance to read it?" And I said, "Yeah, like on breaks and stuff like that." Come to find out, he was an assistant pastor at a church.
Wow.
Yeah. And then maybe like a couple of months after I was in Atlanta, I met my ex-wife, salsa dancing, she was from Bogota, but I met her in Atlanta. And she just happened to be there like on the tail end of her vacation. So she had 3 sisters and a brother living in Atlanta. And she was a teacher at a school in Bogota. So, of course, she had to go back to Bogota. We had a long distance relationship. And over the course of that 4 months, we decided to get married. And during this time, we're talking about 2002. So there was nothing positive in the media or any place else about Bogota or Colombia in general. I mean, it was kidnappings, bombings, drug trafficking, Pablo Escobar. By that time, he was dead. But, that news, people didn't forget about that in the States, And so anyway, my ex was like, "Jason, don't worry about what you read in the news and on the internet. Just come on down, see what it's like. And once you get here, you can make a decision from there whether or not you want to stay." And so I got here and I found out that it was nothing like what I read on the internet or any place else. I didn't see anything, bad going on. I wasn't scared to go out or anything like that. I had a positive experience. And so
And what I love is that you were able to get your own clarity, because a
Right.
lot of times people hear something negative from other people and they take that and they run with it. But adults, listen, you did your own investigation, got your
Yeah.
own clarity, but that's something that a lot of people really don't ever experience is taking an opportunity and going for it. So when you decided to move to Colombia, there's all these specific stories about, the country, like you mentioned, the
Yeah.
bombings and the kidnappings and the danger. And I'm sure
Right.
people in your life, because they care about you, are saying these things like they don't want you to go. But how did you hold on to what you knew to be true when everybody else was saying something different?
Well, okay, so I met my ex, and of course, I told my friend who was the personal training director at the club, and he was a pastor. So once I gave him that news, he was like, "Okay, we need to prepare for your trip." So we're going to do a teaching on faith, and so we did that. Of course, this increased my faith to the point where I was almost ready to go, and
Okay.
I wasn't at that point. I wasn't thinking about going and staying in Colombia. My plan was I was going to go and get married, and if I didn't like it there, of course I could have come back to Atlanta and then bring my wife back to Atlanta. That was the plan. But anyway, this morning that I made the decision after I prayed to the Lord, I said, "Okay, Lord, I have made the decision to go to Bogota and stay." And so I had gone back to work at LA Fitness, and a friend of mine who was actually in the sales department too, he was from Cali, Colombia. And, God just lined
It's the
everything.
alignment is so amazing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And so, when you have the alignment in so many different areas that it's
Yes.
something from God, something you're supposed to do, right? And so my friend from Cali, he would give me like a script in Spanish to talk to people in Spanish when they wanted to, take a tour of LA Fitness and talk about the membership. So, I had my script down in Spanish and I was practicing my Spanish then. Wasn't taking any Spanish classes or anything like that. So anyway, that morning that I made this decision, my friend and I had gone out to do like marketing, like at neighboring businesses around LA Fitness. And so I'm in my car with him. He's in the passenger seat and we're at the red light. My light turns green and I pull off, making a left turn into this shopping center. Out of nowhere, this guy runs the red light and slams into the passenger side of my car.
Whoa.
It was a miracle that my friend did not die in that car wreck. I mean, because
Wow.
it hit right into the door where he was sitting, and so yeah, I should have been dead too. But anyway, with the grace of God, we walked away from that accident, and so that was 2 attempts on my life before I even leave the States to go to Colombia. But anyway, that car accident, it didn't shake me. And then with all the documents I had to get prepared for my marriage visa. I mean, it was like 20 something documents. Everything had to be notarized from the States. And then also a special seal called an apostille from Colombia. And then everything had to be translated from English to Spanish. I mean, it was the most ridiculous process I've ever been through paperwork wise, living in the States. I mean, it was awful. I mean, that whole process took me like a month and a half to get all that stuff together.
Wow.
I think that was enough right there to make somebody quit, and not take that trip. But I was strong in my faith, and that's what helped me to make that decision.
I absolutely love all of this because one of the things that we don't often hear talked about is for men this isolation, finding your own identity, and then really kind of starting over and how that affects the mindset, how that affects the mental health. And so
Yeah.
you're in the United States, you've made this decision to leave, you have two incidents that you were blessed to continue living. And
Yeah.
now you've left the United States, what, about 2 decades ago, and you built this entire life in a country where a lot of people I know personally may have never visited. So,
Mm.
because it's Men's Mental Health Month, I really want to talk about what did that do for your mental health? And
Well, I got to tell you that before I left the States, of course, I didn't have any problems with mental health or anything like that. Of course, I had to, be in situations where my mother would have an episode. She would have to go to the hospital. And after I moved to Colombia, there were, I think, maybe like 4 or 5 times that my grandmother would call me and be like, Jason, you got to come home and see about your mother because I'm just not, in a position to do that. And so I would have to fly home. And at the very most, I was teaching English as a second language then. So I would be in Atlanta for maybe like 3 or 4 days, maybe a week in some cases, to see about her. And it was never a vacation from the time that I came here to Colombia and had to go back to the States. So it was always Jason, come save the day.
right.
It was always it was always one of those situations. So that was kind of taxing on my mental health, but it was never something to the point where I was depressed or had anxiety or anything like that. But still, my spiritual life, my relationship with God helped me a tremendous amount, a great deal. I think with dealing with those situations, I think anybody else who would not have had a relationship with God couldn't have gone through that. I don't think so. Yeah.
And speaking of that, you built this community called Circle of Friends Club, this Christian mental wellness community. And so I think men specifically are the demographic that are least likely to seek out, mental wellness support, the least likely to be able to identify the things that are going on with them. I know for me personally, my brother is bipolar schizophrenic. And so
Oh,
when it's identified, it's easier to work around. And so thank goodness he's got the medication. It took about 10 years to get him stabilized. That was some work. But
oh,
the
wow.
work was done. But a lot of times things are not identified if it's not something that's major. So what made you decide to build this space? And what do men experience when they show up to Circle of Friends Club?
That's a story in itself. So, as I mentioned, when I got here to Colombia, I knew I was going to teach English as a second language. So that's what I did. And, it was organic the way that I got my students. First, it started with my ex-wife's family. Everybody wanted me to teach them English. So it started with that. And then in 2004, God gave me the idea to actually start my own business as an English teacher. So I ended up getting a couple of contracts, and my Spanish level was like maybe, I don't know, lower intermediate level, something like that. And anyway, I had enough faith to pick up the phone book and call companies and ask them would they be interested in offering English classes for their employees.
Love
So
it.
through that, one media company agreed to have me come there. And maybe like after a couple of months, the supervisor at that company who organized my contract was like, I got another company for you. And then, so I ended up with 30 students between these two companies. And so I did that for like a year and a half. And I left those two companies and went to Nortel Networks. And again, at Nortel Networks, we're talking about another 15 students, something like that. Anyway, one day in class, my student says, at the end of our conversation, she's like, Jason, you need to do something to help people more with relationships. Because all my students wanted to talk to me about the boyfriend,
Right.
girlfriend, husband, wife in class. And the conversation was never about English. It was always about their relationships. And so I said, well, that makes perfect sense, right? And so the movie Hitch was out, and another student had said, Jason, you need to see this movie. And so I saw it. And in that movie, there's a speed dating scene. So I said, you know what? That's the perfect solution for single professionals here in Bogota. And so in 2010, I started the speed dating company. And the way that came about was I actually started an English conversation club. And so I had the idea about the speed dating company, but I posed it to them, my students. There were 5 students in my English conversation club. And so I posed the question one night. I said, what do you think about a speed dating company here? One student was like, well, Jason, we're not used to doing that here in Colombia and blah, blah, blah. And they started asking me questions about the payment. And I said, well, I got a PayPal account. I can collect payments with PayPal. And they said, well, yeah, that's another thing. We don't do online payments. So, this was 2007 when we're having this conversation.
Wow.
Yeah. And then so anyway, again, I had to have faith to launch that. It didn't exist in Colombia. So I launched the company. And anyway, I had a website in the beginning. And a lady who was actually a writer from a famous magazine here in Colombia called Soho Magazine, she called me and was like, hey, Jason, would you mind it if we brought our camera crew and everything to your event and film your event and also do an article in our magazine? I said, of course, I'm going to turn that
right.
And then so that's how my speed dating company got launched. I mean, I had radio interviews after that, TV interviews. Of course, my wife at the time, she had a person that did free press. So she helped us to get on like 13 interviews altogether between TV and radio. So yeah, that's how the whole dating part of my life started. And then with the mental health part, in 2015, I sold that company to do something more international.
Okay.
And then 2020, this was actually 2 weeks after Kobe Bryant died. God gave me an idea for this company. And so that was actually Spirit Link. But before that, I had an idea for a circle of friends God gave me. And at that time, I hadn't heard from my mother in like a month and a half, which was really, really unusual. And so I said, okay, well, let me give her a call and find out what's going on. And then so she had this boyfriend from Haiti. Listen, I don't have any, qualms with anybody from Haiti. But, as you know, probably, there's a lot of witchcraft and voodoo that comes out of Haiti. And so my mother had this boyfriend from Haiti, and that particular gentleman was into black magic. So he would do stuff like take my mother to the ATM when she received her retirement check. And, he would withdraw all the money, or have my mother withdraw all the money. He spent it on whatever he wanted to spend it on. So, my mother's house note wasn't being paid, car note wasn't being paid, and her bills were just stacking up. And of course, she had stress because of this, and she couldn't really go into detail because he was there in the room listening to our conversation. So I said, okay. And we hung up the phone, and I said, okay, Lord, show me what's happening in a dream. Again, I have a lucid dream, and I see myself at the top of this building in a city downtown someplace. I couldn't recognize the city. But I see this huge bus off in the distance on the top of this building, and it's filling up with this turquoise blue water like you see at SeaWorld or something like that. And so I see the people inside, and, the bus is teetering on the edge of the building, and it falls off and hits the ground. So I go down to the street, I see the bus, and I pull the door open to the bus, and all this turquoise blue water gushes out, and everybody in there is dead. I see my mom at the back of the bus, and she's alive. So I pull her out of the bus, and then I wake up from the dream. And so I said, Lord, I don't know what's happening in Atlanta right now, but I need to get on a flight and get home like tomorrow. And so I got on the flight and get to Hartsfield Airport in Atlanta. First red flag was the boyfriend picks me up in my mother's car. That's red flag number one.
Red flag number one. Take notes, y'all.
So red flag number two, I get to my mother's house and she opens the door, and Carrie, from here all the way around to here, the top of my mother's hair is all fallen out, completely bald. And so I'm standing there looking at her in complete shock. And so a couple of weeks later, we're watching this TV show called Snapped. You ever watch that TV show?
I don't watch those types of programs, but I am familiar with it. I've heard of it.
Okay. So in this particular episode, my mother and I are watching this, and it goes off. And my mother says, "Jason, do you see this cup on my nightstand?" I said, "Yeah." And she said, "Well, do you know what's in it?" I said, "No. I thought the thing was empty. It's been sitting here for like 2 or 3 weeks now." And she said, "Well, take the lid off and take a look inside." So I'm looking at this liquid inside, and I said, "Mom, what is this?" So she said she saw another episode of Snapped. And in this particular episode, this woman finds out that her husband is cheating. So she devises this elaborate plan to kill him. So she mixes antifreeze with Coke, gives it to him, he drinks it, and is rushed to the emergency room. And not even 24 hours later, he's dead.
Wow.
And so my mother said, "Jason, if you had not gotten on the flight when you did, I would be dead right now. This is antifreeze with Coke." And do you know what the color of this liquid was? It was turquoise blue.
Ah, like the water.
In my dream, yes.
Yes. Wow.
Yeah.
You
And
know,
so
just the
see,
ongoing alignment.
yeah. And so see, the people inside the bus were suicide victims. Because my mother was planning her suicide attempt before I even left Bogota to go to Atlanta. And so the turquoise blue, I found out through actually, after that dream, I was so interested in dream interpretation, trying to figure out what God was trying to tell me through these dreams I was having. And I went to YouTube one day, and God said, "Pay attention to this." So I see this pastor. His name was John Paul Jackson. And he was a pastor, and he was also a spiritual dream interpreter. So he had a TV show, which I had never heard of. So I had, the blessing to see all of these videos that he had on YouTube from his TV show. And he also had videos from his spiritual dream interpretation conferences too. So I studied all his material. And so now, I'm able to interpret these kinds of dreams, spiritual dreams, which come from God. But not only those, though, the ones that come from the enemy. I'm able to interpret those kinds of dreams as well. So I found out, every symbol that God has that he's showing you in a dream has a meaning. Colors have a meaning. The time of day has a meaning. The clothing that you're wearing has a meaning. Vehicles in your dream have a meaning as well. And so the bus in my dream, that's significant of the kind of, or the size of your ministry. So, you could be on a bicycle in the dream.
Right.
You don't have too much of an extensive ministry. But if it's a large vehicle, like a bus, a train, or an airplane, then you're going to be in a position where you're going to be influencing a lot of people.
Wow.
So in my particular case, it's dream interpretation, and it's also mental health, because my mother was bipolar at the time. So God was telling me through this dream, "Okay, Jason, I'm going to be using you in the area of mental health, and also helping people to prevent them from committing suicide."
That is such a blessing.
Yeah. And so by that time, I had already started Circle of Friends. I didn't know it was a club, though. And I didn't know it was mental health based when I had the idea, when God gave me the idea about Circle of Friends. I started my first event in Bogota right before I came to Atlanta. And so it was a barbecue event, and I had a live band perform at this Australian bar in Bogota. I mean, we had a great time. I think like 30 something people showed up. And so I was able to get on the radio to promote that event before I left. That was a success. And then after that, I wanted to do something for the Super Bowl between the New York Giants. I'll never forget, and I think it was, if I'm not mistaken, the Redskins or some other team. I can't remember exactly. But anyway, so I had that event. That was great too. And then that's when I went to Atlanta. So I just kind of put the whole Circle of Friends idea on hold. And then so speeding back up to the pandemic, actually right after Kobe Bryant died, God gave me the idea for an Instagram page called Spirit Link, where I was posting images of people exercising. And at the bottom of the post, I would put a scripture from the Bible. That was the idea. But anyway, I had several celebrities who liked the post, made comments and whatnot. And I said, well, there's something to this.
Yeah.
So not even 2 weeks after that, a friend of mine called me from Bogota. He's like, hey, Jason, would you come here to Bogota and help me manage my English Institute for a couple of weeks? I said, yeah, sure, no problem. So I get to Bogota, which was about 4.5 hours from the small town where I was living with my family. And I get to Bogota, do my job. And at the end of the 2 weeks, I get to the bus terminal. There's no plane or anything that can take me back to my town. So I'm taking a bus and I get there. And this lady comes up to me. She's like, yeah, the whole city of Bogota has been shut down for the pandemic.
Wow.
I couldn't go home. And so I said, goodness, my wife is going to trip.
Right.
And then so I get to the apartment and where my friend let me stay, called him, and he said, Jason, don't worry about it. You can stay at my house as long as you need. This isn't your fault. I said, yeah, of course. So I called my wife. That was the second phone call. And explained to her the situation, that I couldn't go home. And of course, she's highly upset because the next day is her birthday.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. And so, I'm stuck there, and I said, okay, let me pray about this. So I'm talking to the Lord. I'm like, okay, so I'm quarantined here. What would you have me do? And the first thought that comes to mind was start a podcast show. And of course, I don't know anything about podcasting in 2020. And my biggest fear was public speaking. So I said, of course, I'm not going to turn the Lord down and tell him I can't do this. So I said, okay, let me go to my LinkedIn account and, send some DMs out and see if I can get a keynote speaker to speak at an event, at a Spirit Link event. So I send this DM out, I don't know, to 200 something people. The only person that responded was Sugar Ray Leonard's son, Ray Leonard Jr.
Okay.
And so he says, Jason, I love what you're doing. I would love to speak at your event. Let's organize it and get this going. I said, well, proof positive, I'm doing the right thing. And so got the event together. The night of the event, 15 minutes before, there's a blackout in the neighborhood.
What?
Yeah. So, of course, I have to, let all the participants know of this event. I had to call Ray Leonard Jr. and tell him what was going on. And he said, Jason, don't worry about it. This kind of thing happens when you're trying to do something positive. I said, yeah, you're absolutely right. And 10 minutes later, the power comes back on. We're able to do the event. And of course, Ray Leonard Jr. does an excellent job of his speech and everything. Everybody loved it. And so a few months later, I write about this whole experience on LinkedIn. And so I made a post. And so I noticed a comment on the post, and the last name was Hagler. And I was like, okay, I wonder if this is any relation to Marvelous Marvin Hagler. And so I sent him a DM. His name was James Hagler. And James said, yeah, man, I'm Marvelous's first son.
Wow.
And so the crazy thing about this alignment again is that right before Marvelous Marvin Hagler retired from boxing, he has a match against Sugar Ray Leonard. and lost that fight. And everybody said, no, Marvelous won this fight. And of course, Marvelous was highly upset that they made that decision. He quit boxing, left the sport, left the States, and went to Italy to live. I mean, that's how
Wow.
that's how traumatizing this was for Marvelous. And so, of course, that affected, everybody in the family. He left his wife and left her with James and his other siblings. And so this was traumatizing for James and everybody else. So James was dealing with depression and, some issues with his dad, of course, which, not too many people know about. But James talked about this openly on the podcast with me. And we had some extensive conversation about mental health during the time that I had my Living on Purpose podcast. And I asked James after that conversation on LinkedIn, hey, would you like to be my podcast host on my show? He said, yeah. And so we ended up interviewing all the legacy fighters from boxing. Roberto Duran's son, Sugar Shane Mosley's son, and other celebrities during that podcast show. And we had like 50 something episodes that we had recorded on Zoom, y'all.
Right. I was just going to say, yeah.
Yeah, no, there was no StreamYard.
Yeah, you got to start somewhere, though.
You got to start somewhere.
So let me ask you a question,
Yeah.
because I know you're talking about how you built the Circle of Friends Club around wellness. And I know that Spirit Link is really built around relationships. Then you have a
Right.
production business where you connect your audiences. So you're in all of these different spaces where, people are really seen, people are really heard. And it seems like it's intentional. I've seen quite a few of your podcasts, and I know we have about 4 or 5 more minutes where we want to wrap
Oh,
up, and I want to
wow.
get an opportunity to ask questions from the audience.
Yeah.
But what do those things mean to you, personally in terms of mental health and living abroad for 24 years and building these communities from scratch and living during the pandemic, and now you have this dating platform? Talk about what does that mean if you could say one thing to one man who's watching this and they feel like they're kind of building by themselves. What would you say to them?
I would say that, if you have the idea for doing anything in life, especially starting a business, it's going to take faith. And why do I say that? Because you're going to be faced with all kinds of opposition. And, the enemy doesn't want you to do this. He's going to send all kinds of issues with your finances, issues with your family members, issues with mental health stuff. And now there's a loneliness epidemic that everybody's dealing with. And so that's the motivation behind Spirit Link, is to help people connect with each other where they can have meaningful relationships that are faith-based. So that's Spirit Link. I knew from the whole experience with James Hagler and those interviews with Living on Purpose podcast, that's what Circle of Friends had to be about. It had to be a club where I could help people deal with mental health issues. And so we help people deal with depression, anxiety, PTSD, and suicidal ideation. My mother had suicidal ideation and bipolar depression. So, the whole motivation for that comes from my mother. She was my best friend. And, we had a wonderful relationship. And I watched her go from, a happy-go-lucky, gregarious person to somebody that spent the majority of her days in the bed. She didn't want to do anything. And she died in 2014. And from that point, I said, okay, I'm making mental health the focus of everything that I do from here on out. And I'm dedicating all of my work to my mother. And
I absolutely love that, and love how you're honoring your mom and
Yeah.
how you're focusing on helping men in the space of mental health. I know you have another meeting, but I did want to take a few questions just from the audience. We have so many amazing people who are here. We have people here from Mexico. We have people here from Germany, Texas,
Wow.
Canada. And so I'm not going to be able to shout everybody out this is a little bit different, but I did see a couple of questions that I wanted to highlight. And so
Sure.
just give me a second to find that question. I know one of the questions was from Jay Trevetti, and he's asking, are there any movies, and if we can just do like a minute or less, any movies that stand out to you when it comes to mental health?
Ooh, mental health. Movies. Um, you know what? The whole thing about mental health is for me now is that I look at any movie through a spiritual lens. And so what I'm looking at is how that character may go through something challenging in their lives and how that affects them spiritually. And I look at mental health a lot differently than other people. It's actually, through my point of view, a spiritual problem. There's actually a demonic spirit responsible for affecting people with depression and every other mental health issue. So, I look at any movie from a mental health standpoint, but also through a spiritual lens. So I hope that answers your question.
All right, and then one more question. What are some of the best practices? And this question is from Gabe Leal. What are some of the best practices you can offer aspiring podcasters who want to start a podcast for their business?
I think that, one of the most important things is trying to figure out what the focus of that podcast should be. It should be something that you're passionate about, something that you believe in. Because listen, you can look at other podcasters that are famous. You're not going to start out with 1 million views. I mean, you're going to start out with maybe a couple of views and maybe a couple of comments on your show. But it has to be something that you have to have resilience with and perseverance with to get to a point where, you have an audience. It's going to take time. So that's the most important thing. And then also, I would say, just start. Don't wait until you have the perfect equipment and platform and everything else. Listen, I started out with a laptop computer, no microphone, no green screen, no camera, no nothing.
Yeah.
And listen, if I show you that episode right now, you'll laugh because the image is all grainy. The audio is more or less okay, but the image is awful. And it was with Chris Jasper from the Isley Brothers. Isley Brothers, famous R&B group from 60s, 70s, 80s, and they're still famous now. But that was my first guest on my podcast show. Now, if I was scared about how I look on camera, how I sound, do I have the right equipment? Do I have the right platform? I never would have started. You have to start somewhere. That's my advice too.
I love that. And I appreciate you being a guest on Carrie Connects. Really enjoyed our conversation. I have so many more questions that I want to ask, but I also want to encourage everyone to connect with Jason. Check out spiritlink.com. That's link spelled with the letter C. Check him out at circleoffriendsclub.com and connect with him on linkedin.com at JW the Wingman. And make sure that you are connecting with him. And as always, if you're looking for opportunities to be a guest on a podcast, DM me about being a guest on Carrie Connects. And I also want to ask you as we're wrapping up, are you looking for other podcast guests or Circle of Friends Club members or Spirit Link members? What would you say to somebody who is looking to connect with you? Where would they find you and what's the best first step?
Sure. I think the best way to find me is on LinkedIn. I tell everybody that's my second home address. So you can find me on LinkedIn. Just send me a DM. You can also reach me by email too. That's jason@spiritlink.com. So I'm looking for people to collaborate with for podcast interviews, sponsorship. When it comes to Spirit Link, though, I'm looking for people that want to join Spirit Link as a member. If you're single, you're interested in meeting a lady or a man with whom you can have a serious, long-term relationship / marriage, and you're faith and fitness oriented, I would love to have you at Spirit Link. You can send me a DM about that as well, how to join, what our memberships entail, and how to get involved.
All right, and hopefully I typed that in correctly. I was trying to look at the screen and look down at the same time. All right, so you can send an email. And again, thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for being a guest on Carrie Connects. If you have a few minutes to hang out backstage, that's great. If not, I really appreciate you being here, and I know that we will connect again. Thank you to Layla in particular for introducing us. She has been an amazing guest in the audience. And I'm just super excited. She's visiting us here from Canada, and I just have to put this up on stage. She said, hey, nice to see her good friend Jason on Carrie Connects with her Besties Beyond Borders business partner. And I think it absolutely was a wonderful show. So thank you so much for being here, and I look forward to connecting with you on your podcast soon.
Thank you so much.
All right, thank you. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Hey, welcome in. Let the good vibes all begin. Something good is about to happen. Sure. I've been waiting on you. Got a seat with your name. Started with a coffee chat. Now we about to change the game. You got a story worth telling, and I got a room full of ears. So drop whatever you've been holding, get ready because your time is here. Because when real people talking real people, something shifts. When real stories meet real listeners, something lifts. Every Saturday we show up and we bring our best. Show up to Carrie Connects and leave it past. Show up, show up. Something is happening here. Carrie Connects, Carrie Connects. This is your moment, come near where every story intersects and every heart connects. From a coffee chat to the main stage, just bring who you are. Carrie Connects, Carrie Connects. Connection is the start. Carrie Connects. Entrepreneurs, voices, friends, where inspiration never ends. You did not come this far just to sit in the back. Everything you are through was getting you ready for that. So step into the light. Let somebody see your face, because the right conversation can change everything in this place. When real people talk to real people, something shifts. And real stories meet real listeners, something lifts. Every Saturday we show up and we bring our best. Show up to Carrie Connects and leave it bright. Show up, show up. Something is happening here. Carrie Connects, Carrie Connects. This is your moment, come near where every story intersects and every heart connects. Over coffee chat to the main stage, just bring who you are. Carrie Connects, Carrie Connects. Connection is the start. We started over coffee just to see if it was real.